stranded in space on a ship crashing into the atmosphere of an unknown planet, Emile Spencer knew that the only way to survive would be by his own wits and guile. He vowed that somehow he would find and slay the titanic cosmic beast that put him in this predicament, VY572. With every installment, we follow Emile's explorations and discoveries on this journey of revenge against all odds. I'm Midnight Jester, and this is the Left Behind Starforge series.
Well, I was wrong. I am back in my home setup with the old mics and everything. No more need to whisper with somebody in the next room. Everything's back to normal. And we are back with episode 48 of this podcast. So last time, in episode 47, everything was really defined by the intro vignette. You know, we found out an update on Beowulf and Beowulf's pursuit to try and round up some other Vault Hunters for this cause, the upcoming battle that's going to happen on Cinder. Likely anyway. I suppose we don't know officially there's going to be a battle, but odds seem likely. You know, if we're asking the Oracle on this, I may even go as far as almost certain. So Beowulf was out trying to round up people and has been unable to get a lot of solid confirmation that there are people coming. But the latest update was basically that there is a ship known as Newton's Folly that is the match or even exceeds the Beowulf as far as its armaments and just being just a true fighting vessel. Tycoon, the captain of the Beowulf, has decided that it is worth trying to invest in just making that happen. The problem being that it is a ship that's kind of hard to find. They're not reachable other than like directly in person. And so Tycoon is off trying to pursue that. Doesn't know exactly when he'll be returning, but is doing this all as quickly as possible. Now, this led to a fair amount of despair on Cinder. You know, Valkyrie tried to mask it as much as possible, but there were some stirrings. People are less certain that this is all going the right way. Magpie was able to make some great advancements in the coup attempt. Or, well, I guess not an attempt yet, but the laying the groundwork for a coup. Got some new allies, including a woman on the inside of Valkyrie's inner circle. This communications officer named Flatline, who is the one who even set up all of the sign language back in the day. It's implied that Flatline is able to get some more people from the inside to kind of start turning. Like, the snowball is really building on this coup. And while Emile is not directly aware of that, or even aware of it at all, there's still just this realization that they're all alone out here, and it may stay that way. They need allies. Emile was able to convince Valkyrie that this was worth consulting somebody on the outside, trying to get non-Vault Hunters. Emile told her of his warm reception over on Hyperion Station, just a few jumps away in this sector. Hyperion is the station that he helped free from Laztec's clutches, and so they like him a lot there. It's a station that travels around to various parts of the galaxy, being very neutral, just doing ship repairs and shipbuilding on behalf of anybody who would come by. There's also just a big bazaar for lots of trading. Hyperion accepts all. And Emile believes that due to how well he's been received there, he could convince them to help out their cause. Get some ships, get some armaments, get some kind of help beyond what they can do just here on Cinder while he's continuing to work on the project of just salvaging the Reacher. You know, nobody is sure of exactly how much time they're going to have, and he thinks this might be a way to step on the gas, especially if the Beowulf and Newton's Folly do not come back in time. Valkyrie accepted it, sent him off on his way, and the only important thing was that he covered his tracks. And yeah, basically Emile did more or less. He did wind up discovering that the robot Buzzard is actually beginning to develop some sentience. And so there's a bit of a back and forth in the end where Emile was trying to get Buzzard to delete memory of the events that when Emile was going out to get this secret pickup from a shuttle that was going to take him to Hyperion outside of the base. Buzzard wasn't willing to do that. Emile discovered the sentience in the process, and while he knocked Buzzard out with EMP so that Buzzard wouldn't witness exactly what happened, knocked Buzzard out and then sent them on a skiff back to Concord, he did not delete the memory. Respected that Buzzard was becoming alive, and he would trust Buzzard to hopefully keep the secret. but he was not going to truly delete everything from the memory. And then Emile got picked up and went off towards Hyperion, and we faded to black, credits rolled, executive producer Dick Wolf, all that stuff, and we come back to it all. Now, this is the beginning of a session, so there's a couple of things that we really need to take care of here. And this is an important one. I mentioned how the ball has really gotten rolling on the coup attempt. Magpie is really starting to get some allies, and people are very uncertain about Valkyrie's leadership. With the latest update that has spread around from the Beowulf, people are feeling pretty scared. Now, we roll at the beginning of every session whether or not the campaign clock advances, for Magpie's coup attempt. So I'm going to roll this clock because we are one segment away from that being full and the coup actually happening. If ever there were a moment to do it, like if he has enough allies for it, which he might just not, but if he does, it doesn't get to be a much better moment. Like Emile's not even there. Not that Emile is the number one person standing in the way of this coup, but certainly if they were able to find out that Emile left, like if somebody does sniff that out, because it was all supposed to be secret, he could use that to his advantage to say, like, look, our big salvation that Valkyrie has put all of our eggs in that basket. He left us. He abandoned us. Like, this would be the moment for this coup. So we're going to roll on that clock, and I need to make an important decision here about the likelihood of it advancing. Because while this is the perfect moment for it, it does rely a little bit on some information that they don't necessarily have, and it does rely on him having enough allies to make it worthwhile. And we're leaving that all up to chance. So usually I have weighted this based on how much time there's been. Like this has just been kind of a slow but inevitable process. Last episode didn't take a lot of time, though. It really all happened over the course, we didn't really do anything that took time. It happened over the course of like a day. So as a result of that, I got to balance some factors here. The time factor, I think, is going to overshadow a little bit of just how perfect of the moment it is. And I'm going to settle on unlikely. I feel like maybe, depending on how long Emile is gone on Hyperion, that may get, like maybe next session, it's getting likelier and likelier. It kind of depends on what's going to happen, but let's roll this. So, does Magpie's coup attempt utterly fill up? With unlikely, we get no. So barely a no, too. Oh my god. So on unlikely, on a D100 roll, there's a 25% chance of a yes. I rolled a 27. So we just barely did not have that fill in. Obviously, on a 50-50, that would have happened. So clearly, the one tiny thing that this is hanging on, I feel, there's a lot of dissatisfaction going on, a lot of secret meetings and stuff, but maybe they don't know that Emile is gone. And that would have been the catching point right there. Now, we could do a little bit of a vignette if I wanted to boost my momentum a little bit more, because we're sitting at a 6. We can only get as high as 9, but still, every little bit would be helpful. What would the vignette be? We could do one of these little secret meetings. Yeah, I think it's just going to be in broad strokes. Like, I'm not going to just full-on role-play out a lot, like a big group of people having an underground meeting. But let's figure out where it's taking place. How about... We established when we first started kind of exploring Concord a little bit more, we came up with a bunch of prominent locations. What if this one takes place in one of the ones we haven't seen yet? I'm thinking that this kind of meeting, it takes place in the Room of the Lost. As you may or may not recall, when we were starting off, when we were establishing these places, we determined that the Room of the Lost would be a room full of just occupied cryopods, and just a shrine to everybody who has been lost along. I'm just reading directly from what I wrote about it. It says, occupied cryopods and a shrine to all those who have been lost along the way. Many people from the explosion are up there. There's one has a message in blood about not succumbing to vengeance, which is clearly being a little bit ignored right now during this meeting. We see it in the background of this vignette, like ironically, like everybody's back is turned to it in the framing. There are various people inside these pods, again, and they're not dead. These are all mortally wounded, or at least grievously wounded people that there's just no there's just no ability to actually save at the moment. Anyway, I think they picked this spot because it's easy to justify. There's a shrine here. Lots of just pictures and memorabilia of all the people who have been lost, and of course, some amount of people that are just still alive in the cryopods. And it's very justifiable. People come here to grieve. And importantly, even like there might be people that are not specifically here for the meeting of the underground, but anybody who comes here, Magpie surmises, might be a little bit more swayable. Because clearly they're still mourning, they're feeling raw, they'd be in an emotionally manipulable state. And Magpie figures they can not only meet but bring new people to the cause. And we see that happening over the course of this vignette. It starts as a smaller group of just kind of the people on the inside that Magpie has already gotten. We've got Vert here, we've got Flatline, and some of the other people from the communications room that are not currently on shift. We, of course, have Magpie. And I think the purpose of this is indeed, it's less meeting for exact plans, at least initially. And it is indeed more about speaking loudly to draw in more and more of a crowd as they kind of pretend to be mourning people in here, but are clearly leading the conversation in a certain way to be talking more and more about their worries about what's going on right now. And the crowd gets larger and larger as people are curious about what's being talked about. And over time, it moves less from just this like faking like they're mourning and turning more and more into a direct speech as Magpie starts directly criticizing Valkyrie and taking a temperature of the room of who's on board, who is not, what kind of how many people are nodding when he brings up certain points. And I think the real point of this vignette, the reason that we're zooming in on this moment, is the kind of the end part where once he gauges that enough people have some interest, I think he floats out there that, something should be done about this. And he says, "And if any of the rest of you agree with me on this, I encourage you to come join us all at the junk pile, where we can discuss further about how we might salvage this situation." And there's some like knowing nods and stuff, not among everybody, but there are certain people in the room that seem to understand that that's where the true meeting is going to happen, where they start talking specifics about getting rid of Valkyrie. And he sees that, yeah, there's some people that have been receptive to the message, and there's a little bit of a grin forming on his face. And it's just that. We see how Concord is teetering on the edge here, and importantly, what we learn from this vignette is that tonight is going to be the first night where they start talking specifics. Like, how specifically might this coup go down? They're forming plans. It's probably not going to be the only meeting they have on this. They still need to shore up their numbers and stuff, but the veil is going to be dropped for anybody who's there tonight. Anyone who shows up is going to be an active participant in this thing. And so we learn that that's right there. Anyway, let's take our +1 momentum. And let's get back to what's going on with Emile as the shuttle arrives on Hyperion. There's perhaps a bit of a brief montage when we get here. Emile arrives and Minna greets him, is happy to see him and everything. And he gets set up in a place to stay. And as we move around Hyperion, we see that, it's doing fine, but it definitely looks a little bit less populated than before. There's less activity, like certainly in the hangar itself and just all around. When we get glimpses of the bazaar, there aren't nearly as many people coming and going around here. In fact, the bazaar itself, there are a lot of empty spaces where we used to see some of the stalls. A lot of those spaces are empty. And when Emile asks about this, we find out that this is because Hyperion, this is a traveling station. It's been in this spot for a while, and apparently they're getting ready to leave and head to some other place to conduct their business elsewhere. Apparently the time has come. They've been here long enough. It's not imminent, but the preparations are in place, and so some of the people that are not interested in going where they're heading next, or a little bit more local or whatever, like some of the people who do business here have started to leave, and so this kind of happens in cycles. This is always what happens before they're about to go. Like some of the people head out, and so they're just going through that process now as the preparations are coming in place. It's little things all over the place. The job board that he looked at one time when he found out about Grudge doesn't have nearly as many postings on it. It's mostly blank, honestly. There aren't a lot of people that are sticking around that are going for that kind of mercenary work. But it's not completely. There are still some around that are pushing it right to the end. But Emile recognizes that the types of things that he needs, the kind of support he's asking for, he couldn't just get that from the likes of Minna or anybody at the hangar or any one individual. Like, this is an executive decision. He's going to need to have a meeting with the guy on top, the builder. In this case, the guy literally on top, as we recall. There's an elevator that brings you all the way to the top floor, which is the only official way to get up there, unless you're going through the guts of the ship like Emile did last time. But that was about trying to hide what he was doing from last second. There's no reason to do that this time. This time he can set up an official meeting. Maybe. I think given that preparations are underway in order to, get this station moving, like this is probably a period of high activity when it comes to that front. And as we recall, the builder had a direct pipeline, like through his penthouse, the builder, there's direct access to the area of the ship that actually handles the jump technology that brings Hyperion over to different places. And so whether or not that's all handled directly by the builder or just people do it through his supervision, he's probably pretty busy right now. So let's see if Emile can get an audience with him. I think because Emile is such a appreciated person around here, I'm going to give the chance that he doesn't even have to make a move to do this. I'm going to ask the Oracle whether or not the builder is just available for a meeting with Emile. I would put it at likely if it weren't for how busy he is. So I'm going to drop it down to 50-50. And we're just going to see, is he just directly available without Emile, greasing the wheel somehow? No, he's not available. So Emile, while respected around here and being given, free lodging and food and everything, he's being otherwise covered and people still like him, but the builder is really busy. So if Emile doesn't want to have to wait for a while to get on that list, which is the real problem. It's not that Emile can't get the meeting exactly, but it's that the message he's getting is talk to us after we've jumped to the new place. And obviously that's no good for Emile. Let's see, how much time... I think we get the sense that would only involve waiting a few more days. But, the big problem is, of course, Emile doesn't want them to jump away to a completely new sector and all of that. He wants their help here. So Emile needs to get on that list. Or to sneak in up there again, but I think he'd rather not do that if for no other reason. He's going to need this meeting to go as well as possible. And last time that he did that, the builder they didn't start off on great terms when Emile just snuck his way in there, as makes sense. So what can he do to just shoehorn himself into this list? I'm sure there's some kind of official that controls the meeting schedule and everything down below when you're going through official channels like this, and, they might be swayable. I'm going to roll an Oracle here to find out a little bit about, what do they want? We're just rolling a character goal here, and we get protect a secret. So I'm going to choose to interpret this in a way that's very helpful to me, because this is not what the session is about. I think what this implies, it's not that I'm stretching this a little bit, but it's not that they have a secret that they need to protect, because they're not an important enough character for me to give them that kind of a goal. I think this is a real gossipy person who loves to be let in on the hot gossip, wants to be told a secret so that they can protect it. They probably won't. They'll spread it around. And of course, Emile has a very juicy secret. He's got secrets he could tell all about the Vault Hunters. He gets the idea that, the read on this person is that if he were... Well, let's get a name for them. The read on this person, whom we call... Nope, I just rolled Tycoon. We're not getting another Tycoon. Packrat. So Packrat is the person who's in charge of the builder's scheduling. And they are youthful and slight. Okay, so real, this is a kid that's been put in charge of it's basically just a receptionist. They're probably up in the penthouse, but in that opening area, the front room of it, before you get into where the builder actually is. You can take the elevator up there, but then there's still just this front desk where we have Packrat, this really young kid who's just handling the day-to-day. And yeah, Packrat, Emile gets the sense that he would be super into, he loves being able to dish about the hot gossip. And so Emile thinks that if he let Packrat in on exactly what's going on, Packrat would be so intrigued that he might be able to move some things around. But then, of course, Packrat, he doesn't expect Packrat is especially, like, great at keeping that secret. You know, loose lips and all of that. And so he needs to consider very carefully what he says, because he knows, like, that's a button he could press. So I think the way I'm going to adjudicate that is, basically, if Emile gives Packrat something juicy, I think that's worthy of securing an advantage before a compel move to just, like, get on the list and have this meeting. So, and I think Emile is willing to say something, but I don't think Emile is going to try and I don't think Emile is going to give him, like, the full story, because, like, that's very protected information, but he'll try implying at a little bit of what's going on and saying, like, look, I respect, of course, that everything's on a tight schedule right now. There's a lot of things moving on, but, you know, this is information that has to be given imminently. Literally, life and death could hang in the balance on this. I'm not bullshitting you. And Packrat has certainly heard people try and horn their way in before, and is just kind of rather a bit disaffected and kind of still vaguely ignoring Emile. Just like, yeah, life and death, yeah, staring at his phone or the equivalent. Emile's like, no, I'm serious. Like, and Emile kind of bends down conspiratorially and leans in a little bit and just says, there's a battle that's on the line that's upcoming. I'm talking like a major conflict between the Imperium and the Vault Hunters. It's imminent. It's imminent, and it's going to be happening nearby. Nobody's supposed to know about this, but just you watch. And so I'm going to roll the secure an advantage to represent, like, has Emile convinced the dude that this is indeed, like, he's not just making this up? And so I think this is just going to be a heart roll. You know, he's not lying or anything. Has he pitched it well enough to get this dude's interest? Is Packrat intrigued? Then we get a weak hit on this one. So we can either take the 2 momentum, which would max us out, or a +1 on the next move. In this case, I feel like it is best represented by a +1 on the next move. The whole idea is this interesting bit of gossip will help Emile sell the idea that he really needs to have this meeting now. So we're going to take a +1 on that compel, as Packrat is clearly, like, intrigued, but trying not to completely show it. Packrat is just kind of nodding and trying to, like, not show how interested they are in more details. Ooh, tell me more. And Emile knows at that point, like, he's got him at least a little bit on the hook, but he says, like, well, there's not much more specifically I can tell just yet, but of course, if I were able to have a meeting with the builder, there might be some juicy details coming. This is no ordinary meeting, if you understand what I mean. If I can get this meeting in time and not have to wait until you leave the sector, there could be some big developments around here. And I'm sure you'd be one of the first to know. And so that's his route in. That's how he's trying to try and angle in, like, no, like, I should have this meeting now. So again, this is going to be a heart roll, but we're going to have the +1 on it because of the benefits of secure an advantage. And so this time we get... Okay, it's another weak hit, and this time it's another weak hit, and despite our high momentum and rolling pretty well, like, one of the challenge dice was a 10, and so we're not able to do anything about it. And so this, of course, means that while Packrat is going to grant this meeting, there is a demand or a complication to it all. And I think in this case, Packrat is just kind of, you know, still trying to not look like they're too interested, but not doing a good job at hiding it. Just being like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. Well, I mean, it sounds like it's a pretty important meeting, but, you know, for anything that kind of last minute, I mean, I'd probably have to come along just to, you know, make sure he knows that it's real, right? Like, you know, emergency meetings like that, I'll lead you in. So, and, you know, and then he might want me to lead you back out, so I'd just stick around at that point. And so basically, the counter offer is he can get this meeting, like, right away, like, while he's up here now, but Packrat is going to be in there to hear all of the details of this. Nothing that he's going to find out about later. Packrat is functionally going to be part of the meeting, and as we know about him, like, he might as well be live tweeting it. You know, he won't literally be doing that sort of thing, but Packrat is not going to hold on to these secrets at all. Anything that gets said here is functionally public information. at least after a short delay, unless Emile does something to stop that. And I think Emile is savvy enough to recognize that's the case. He knows what the terms are here. We're going to get our +1 momentum. And I think it's still an important enough meeting that he'll take what he can get. And he just says, like, yeah, I mean, it sounds like you'd be an important part of this whole thing. So obviously you'd have to be there. And he's like, not completely masking the sarcasm of that. But he goes, though, by the way you put it, it sounds like there's an opening right away. Like he'd be available to talk now. Is that fair? I mean, I think it's probable. Yeah. I mean, I could talk to him, and well, I mean, I need to look at the I need to look through his schedule, and yeah, I think we could squeeze something in now. Yeah, I think we could squeeze something in now. Come on with me. Come along. And so Packrat leads Emile back into the more private area that Emile's accustomed to, and indeed was going to stick around, but gives a bit of an announcement. Like, he makes this all official for Emile, where the builder is back in his office, and Packrat says, "Sir? Excuse me, sir?" "Yes, what is it, Packrat?" Emile Spencer is here to see you." "Emile Spencer? My, but we have a bit of a celebrity here, don't we? It's been a long time, Mr. Spencer. Welcome back to Hyperion Station." "Yeah, glad to see that you're still looking well." "I'm doing as well as I can at this age. You've come at a very exciting time, of course. Soon to be announcing the next sector where we will commence with our commerce. Any bets on where it might be?" Not a bet exactly, but I've got a proposition of which one it should be." "Oh, do tell." "I think you should continue your business in the Hidden Breach." "The Hidden Breach is where we are at this very moment, Mr. Spencer. You're making me concerned for your well-being." "No, I'm well aware. I'm saying it's not time to leave yet." The builder clearly understands, like, he's heading somewhere with this, like he's rolling into his pitch, so he just goes, "I take it this is related to why we're having this meeting, then?" "Very related. Look, I'm going to get straight to the point here. I'm coming here asking for some help." "Well, what is it that you need?" "Well, it's a big ask, and you might think of me as more of a liaison than directly the person who is going to be getting aid from this, but do you know the planet Cinder?" "Not a hellhole, but yes, I am familiar with Cinder. Not exactly a place where we conduct a lot of business, given the lack of any environment that could sustain life. What about Cinder?" "Well, you'd be surprised how much can go on there." "Emile, you said you were going to be getting straight to the point, and yet you seem to be talking around in circles. Which one is it going to be?" "No, you're right. This is something that very, very, very few people know about. And yet in the same way, all too many people know about it." "Good God, Mr. Spencer, get on with it." "Vault hunters. There are vault hunters on Cinder. And that's not something that anybody is supposed to know. The Imperium has been trying to find them, and well, there is strong reason to believe that they've done exactly that they're on their way. And well, the Vault Hunters that I represent, they're not going to be able to stand up against that kind of an onslaught. I'm coming seeking aid. Aid in the form of battleships, single fighters, anything you got. We need the ability to stand our ground." "Mr. Spencer, I don't understand why exactly this is a meeting. Certainly you're aware that there are many a merchant down below that are willing to sell you a ship if that's what you're interested in." "Well, and here's where it gets trickier. Much as I'd love to just buy the ships,
You don't have the money to buy them, do you?
Not now. This group of individuals does not have an account full of the credits it would take to buy these sorts of ships.
Are you asking for Hyperion to cease its activity going on to pursue greater commerce, leaving an area that's, at this point, completely dried up? You want us to not go seek greener pastures, and in addition to that, utterly just give away our ships? This is... You may be well liked around here, Mr. Spencer, but this is indeed an incredible ask you're going for.
Well, you wouldn't necessarily have to give them over if Hyperion were willing to pilot them and fight alongside us.
Emile,
He gets, his face drops a little bit and he gets more serious and says,
Emile, Hyperion Station has always been built on the principle that we don't take sides. This is a neutral station. Anyone is welcome to come here, Vault Hunter, or Imperium, or otherwise. There are lots of people out there, and everyone is welcome to benefit of our services. We do not take sides. I built this place on that principle, and I stand by it this many decades later. There's far too much conflict out in the world as far as I'm concerned, and we should all learn to work together.
Look, I don't mean to be rude, but I don't think that's true.
You don't think we should all learn to work together?
I don't think that's what you really want. Exactly.
I beg your pardon, but I have decades of evidence to the contrary.
You have decades of evidence helping out everybody. That's true. But I don't think what you most benefit from is everybody getting along. It's a station that primarily gets by on repairing ships, yeah? What exactly do the ships need to get repaired from? Conflict. If it weren't for all the skirmishes between the Vault Hunters and the Imperium, all the various people shooting at each other, there wouldn't be nearly as much business having to go to Hyperion, to a place that's not going to ask any questions. You benefit completely from the types of people that I'm representing. Sure, you may say that you're willing to serve the Imperium, they can avail you of your services, but when's the last time that's really happened? The Imperium doesn't come here. They've got official shipyards that are going to repair them. They've got other channels back in the terminus. They don't need to go out to Hyperion Station. No, it's the people out on the frontiers that are trying to uncover the most dangerous mysteries and having to fend off the Imperium while they're at it. They're your clientele. And so, yeah, if you want to take the short view that business has dried up around here and it's time to go somewhere else and continue being neutral and taking whatever customers you have, that might work for a little bit. But if you don't support the Vault Hunters in this moment of need, this is going to be a crippling blow, and that's going to cost you business down the line. Whether they say it or not, I'm sure you tend to many a Vault Hunter. And no, that may not be everybody, but if you don't choose sides in a conflict like this, you've chosen the side of the Imperium. Sure, it may not be directly of your doing, but that's the way it's going to roll. And the more the Imperium takes over, the more that they can quash all the types of people that actually do avail Hyperion of their services, Hyperion's not going to last. If you want to avoid that, we're going to need ships. Okay, so I'm going to allow Emile to make a compel roll based on that. However, I'm muting the amount that he can get out of it. Like, this is kind of one step along the way. And, even a strong hit on this is not like, great, have all these ships and you can have them for free. Like, what he is arguing on behalf of is not that strong. I wouldn't allow him to be able to get that high on it. This would be like if we were playing Blades in the Dark and Emile could make a roll for limited effect. This is not standard or great effect at all. Like, he can barely move the needle on this, but he might be able to a little bit. I think the compel is really like that Emile has said enough and made it clear, like, there's enough vaguely in the builder's interest to at least continue this conversation and negotiate over it. Like, if he's not successful on this channel is closed. The builder will never hear him out. But if he can get some success, maybe there's at least a conversation to be had and terms to be ironed out. So let's see if that's the case. can Emile compel him to actually have this conversation and see that there would be some benefit to maybe doing something that would take sides and help out the Vault Hunters? So it's going to be a heart roll. And we get... So this is a miss, but I could turn it into a weak hit if I just burn momentum. And I think that's going to be necessary. Like, Emile still really wants to do this from the top down. He doesn't want to be looking for a different channel on how to actually get what he needs out of this. So I'm going to burn all this momentum, resetting us to a +1. And so as a result of this weak hit, he's going to have a demand or a complication. So as I mentioned, even a strong hit wasn't going to be like, here, have all these ships. It was going to be, we can continue this conversation. So in this case, rather than additional demand, I'm going to go with complication in the sense of like a story complication. I think that the builder actually knows a little bit more about something than Emile does. And so he says,
I think I have an idea of some of what you're afraid of. Here on Hyperion, we keep our ears open, and we certainly received a signal from Cinder not all that long ago. Seems to be quite the activity going on there. I take it that's why you think the Imperium has been led to your position, yes?
it's related.
Yes, well, quite the blast that came from that planet. Heard far and wide. Why, from what I understand, there are some people on board right now who've come in pursuit of it from as far as Anubis.
And so the builder does not know all of the meaning of that, how all the implications, he doesn't know anything about the wooden heart or anything like that. But even though this isn't a pay the price move, I'm going to kind of treat it like it is and say the complication on this is some of the scouts from the wooden heart, all the way over on Anubis, they are this close. They are currently fueling up, re-gearing, retooling, getting ready to go the rest of the way to Cinder. They've just stopped over at Hyperion. They're here now. And so I'm going to fill in one more segment on that tension clock. The arrival of the Wooden Heart fleet is now one segment away. When they are ready, all they have to do is get from Hyperion to Cinder. And their ships are here. And so Emile, he's thinking Anubis, wait a minute. And the wheels in his head are turning, and he has a bad feeling, but he can't quite place it. Because again, he doesn't know enough about the Wooden Heart's plan and agenda. He knows that last time he was there, that was all what was going on. But he's not aware of the zealotry that's happening and that they're going to be coming. He doesn't know enough to really put all the pieces together, but he's just got this goosebumpy kind of feeling. There's something wrong with that. And we're going to take the +1 momentum as a result of that move. So the builder is willing to continue the conversation, but he has also certainly made clear that he needs to get paid for this. All the idealism is all well and good, but this is a place of business, and he's going to need some concrete assurances. And so Emile says, "You've mentioned that you're leaving this sector because business has dried up. Is that accurate?"
There are not many people who are heading through the hidden breach these days, it's true. Some, and they need some light restocking, but the time has simply come to move on to greener pastures, yes.
I think if you were leaving now, you'd be leaving behind one of the biggest projects this place has ever had.
Go on. The floor is yours.
When we're not scrambling to try and deal with the oncoming fleet of the Imperium, do you know what we were in the middle of?
If I did, I wouldn't be asking you to go on, so go on.
Do you remember when a ship called the Reacher came through this area? I don't know if it passed right by you or not, but it was in the hidden breach. Did you see it?
I don't recall a ship of that name passing through directly around here, no.
Well, the Reacher is a cruiser. We're talking about a ship capable of transporting 10,000 souls if we're at capacity.
What of it?
Well, it crash-landed on Cinder, falling into a pit of magma, and we're in the middle of trying to salvage it. Because I served on that ship, I know what it can withstand. It survived the impact. I've been inside it since. It can survive the lava. This thing is a beast. We just need to be able to dredge it back up. And when we do, while it may have survived, it's going to need some work. And this is no mere patching back together a fighter who got blasted in a battle. We're talking about massive structural damage, the type of ship that's going to need utter fundamental repairs. Huge endeavor requiring probably everybody on board here to be able to deal with. Fixing this up is going to be a project on the scale of, well, making Hyperion Station itself. Like gestures around to some nearby sign of how this place was cobbled together out of various starships. I doubt you've had a project of that scale since making it. And if you don't think you're done yet, if you think that the days of being an architect of this kind of place aren't behind you, well, they're down there on Cinder. But the Vault Hunters and I, we're the only people who know where it is. It's hidden. There's a lot of lava down there to be looking for, so what I've told you isn't enough to find it. The Imperium's not going to know about it. It's going to be lost forever down there. Beautiful ship, by the way. But if we survive this, that cruiser is coming up to the surface, and we're going to need a lot of help bringing it back into its former glory. This is a project worthy of the Builder. For all the legend that's behind your name, this is what you've been waiting for. Both a continuation of your legacy, and I'm sure we can work out some amount of the salvage rights in order to pay for the actual endeavor of it. Everybody can win with this. So help us survive long enough to bring this ship back up so you can take on the next big project. And I think he's hit on the right buttons here. You know, he remembers what's important to the Builder from before, and I think this kind of like reclaim a lost glory sort of thing, it's like the exact kind of button to push for him, where he might be willing to not make out as well on the business end in order to take on a project of this scale again, like to really stretch his mind into like the puzzle of salvaging a ship like this. So I'm going to allow him one more compel roll. And let's see, what is the specific thing he's asking for here? Actually, why don't we roleplay that out a little bit more to get down to what specifically Emile expects as help. Like not just generically help us, but what specifically is Emile asking for? Because he sees that the Builder is intrigued and says,
"And what exactly would it take for you to survive?"
"What we're missing right now is equipment. We know they're going to be coming from the air. I don't know how many, but there's going to be an aerial battle. And we need fighter ships. I expect heavy artillery to be covered, but we're going to need agile ships, snub fighters to be able to fill in the gaps. So don't leave the hidden breach. Supply us with any fighters that you can manage. We can do the rest. I don't need you to fight for us. I'm not asking for that. I'm just asking you to recognize a business opportunity and do what you can to make it possible." So I'm going to do another compel roll here. And so we're specifically asking, you know, what we're trying to persuade him is you don't leave the sector and you're going to supply ships, basically. And this is going to be another heart roll. And we get, okay, I rolled really well, but it is a weak hit. One of the challenge dice was a 10. So there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, our momentum is low right now anyway, but like we only got a weak hit out of it. So there's going to be a demand or a complication. And this time, I think, again, we're still reaching really high here for what a place like Hyperion would be willing to do. So I think the counter offer is going to be pretty severe, which is the Builder talks it out and goes,
"It is a very compelling opportunity down below the surface there. I wouldn't want to miss out on it. We cannot directly intervene. You know that is not the way of Hyperion. I can't simply supply you ships. However, any ship that carries 10,000 souls is surely large enough to house ships within it. Were there fighters on board for the Reacher?"
There were. They're down below the magma as well.
"Then what I can do is this. We can supply equipment in order to help dredge it back out of the magma more quickly. You and I will devise a solution for it, figure out the details, and we will uncover it together, Mr. Spencer. And hopefully, you'll have your armaments waiting inside. Is that agreeable?"
Well, it sounds like it's the best I'm going to get around here, so I'll take it. time is a factor, so we need to go quickly on this.
I can cancel my meetings, can't I, Packrat?
Yeah, we can we could shift some things around.
Oh, the remaining ones are about leaving the sector anyway, are they not? It's no longer relevant. Spread the word, we're sticking around here. We have business to attend to.
So I'm going to get the +1 momentum from the move. And what I'm also going to do, I think this is worthy of a hit of progress on salvaging the Reacher from the magma, because we now are going to directly have allies with equipment in that process. You know, the builder, he's good at these kind of grand scale projects. And Emile's going to be able to work with him to figure out what they need. Now, there is an additional wrinkle on this complication, which is that up until this point, Emile has always been talking about, salvaging the Reacher. It was is pitched to Valkyrie and all of them as like they were practically they were going to be able to strip it for parts, use its resources to make the base better. And the builder is only interested in this project if they can have a fully running ship when it's all done. Like, he wants to restore the Reacher. So anything they salvage has got to be just like interior components, not just like stripping down the ship itself. That's at least his understanding at the moment. If anything ever changes that, it's going to introduce its own problems. But he is going under the understanding that while he doesn't get to keep the Reacher, like he's going under the standing that one of two things is going to happen. They're going to fix up the Reacher, and then either it is paid for, all of that work is paid for, on like a bit of a discount because he just wanted to be able to do something that incredible, or he gets to keep the Reacher as payment. And like any amount that the people of Concord are able to salvage from it is probably going to be pretty minimized. Either way, they can't take things that are going to interfere with it being a functional ship. So there's going to be a lot of like push and pull on what could be scavenged when the moment comes. But for now, he's at least got some backup help on getting this out of here. So they begin hashing out over like, what is Emile's plans? And he starts telling the builder all about what they're doing with this drilling solution and the progress he's made, and they're comparing notes and everything. And I think they determined that even if everything goes right with all the tunneling that Emile is doing, like if the digger is made complete, if he finishes that all out, it would take a while for the lava to clear. And so I think what they start working on is the pumping solution, like some kind of a giant, high-powered pump that could be designed nearby that would course the magma out into that channel that they've carved. Something that would speed up the process so they can get at the Reacher quicker, because clearly time is of the essence. And so they start getting to work designing that and figuring out what's going to be needed. And I don't think it's something that has to be wholly invented, but they certainly don't have it ready. But there are a lot of people around that are used to doing mechanical work around here. And so the order starts going down as we flash ahead in time a little bit and speed this along. Hyperion starts working on this pump, which is why we get the progress. They're going to be working on that. They're going to help deliver it. Like, that much they will help contribute to, just not the direct combat. But while that's all going on, we spoke back at the beginning about how Packrat is a big gossiper. Basically, anything that happens in this meeting, everybody is going to know about. We also spoke of how there are clearly agents of the Wooden Heart here on this station right now. So as Packrat's loose lips leak everything about what's going on to the rest of the station, the agents of the Wooden Heart find out about all this activity going on Cinder. They have a better idea of what to expect and what's going on. They hear about this ship down below the magma, and they recognize that, hey, all these people on Concord are going to be very distracted off on the other part of the planet where the Reacher is. They don't have to go in fighting. They might be able to sneak their way to the Chaos Crystal that they're actually looking for, because they're not looking for a fight. The Imperium is. They recognize that if they do this slowly and carefully, they may be able to sneak in and out without anybody knowing that they were there. And they determine that clearly when their ships are fully resupplied, this is the opportune moment. Now, in addition to that, there is something a little bit more nefarious that they realize, which is, so there's like these two agents here. And since they now think that the people of Concord are going to be distracted, and that this Chaos Crystal could be extracted with just a one-person crew, they think that they might be able to split their forces here. Because the other thing that they find out as a result of the loose lips is that Emile Spencer is here. And while they would not have, as individuals, known who that is, because of their zealotry towards the Wooden Heart, they have been filled with an understanding of this enemy of the cause, that Emile has previously been a thorn in the side of the Heart, and importantly, that the Heart would love to have him back, that Zoya Silva, as the avatar of the Wooden Heart, would want Emile back. He would be a suitable component to the ritual that will be necessary in order to bring Sapphire over to this world. And so they determine that perhaps, if they're able to capture Emile, one of them can bring Emile back to the Wooden Heart, bring him to Anubis, while the other goes to Cinder in order to extract the Chaos Crystal. And so Emile is here for a little bit of time as they're continuing to work on the pump. Stuff like that is happening. You know, this isn't just like the very next moment after the meeting. He's had some time, perhaps a few days have gone by as he continues working on this design and overseeing the process of making the pump with the help of the builder. You know, there's some downtime. Lots of stuff happens here, and over the course of those few days, at some point, they're going to try and jump Emile. I don't think they're going to try and take him in a direct firefight. I more see the people of Anubis, the weird kind of culty-like people we've described before, I think I see them as more like poisoners. That maybe something gets slipped into Emile's drink at some point. They have a very subtle and sneaky approach like that. And so what I want to do is, we're going to do a face danger. And this is going to be a wits-based face danger. How aware is Emile of his environment to notice or not being slipped a kind of like a psychedelic poison? I think it's going to be that sort of thing, because they don't want to kill him, but basically slip something in his drink so that he is going to be just quickly, wildly incapacitated by just psychedelic visions that will allow them to be able to just take him over. So that's what's at stake here. Let's make the move. So this is a face danger with wits. He doesn't have the opportunity to secure an advantage or anything. He doesn't know this is coming. He knows that there are people from Anubis here, but again, he doesn't know that it has anything to do with the Wooden Heart. He got a bad feeling about it all, but he hasn't put all the pieces together. So, face danger with wits, we get. Okay, this is a weak hit, which means we succeed, but not without a cost. Make a suffer move. So that tells me that I think Emile notices there's something wrong with his drink, but not before tasting a little bit of it. Like, he only gets part of the dose. So the suffer move here, there's a number of ways I could justify it. It could easily be a momentum one. I mean, that's pretty much always justifiable. I think because it's not a poison that's trying to kill him, I don't think it makes sense to bring his health down. Maybe his spirit, just out of, like, if he gets a little bit of a dose of it, like, it still may be fucking with his perception a little bit, and that just throws him off, like, messes with his emotional state as certain threats seem more looming, and like he starts going on a little bit of a trip here. And I think spirit is a reasonable one to go with. Let's do that. So it's just going to be a -1, goes to his spirit, and we need to endure that stress. I am choosing to resist the roll because our spirit is still at a 3, so we got a pretty good shot at this. So rolling it, we get. Oh, shit. In trying to endure this, I got a double 9 miss with a match. So it's worse than you thought. Suffer an additional -1 spirit or lose momentum -2. But also, this is a double 9 match, so it's going to be worse than that. So spirit's going down to 2. And now I don't want to take away his success entirely. You know, this still did come with him successfully identifying that there was a poison in his drink and avoiding the worst of it. So, like, this isn't going to invalidate that. But clearly he got more of a dose than he was hoping for. I mean, I guess nobody's hoping for any dose of poison in their drink, but I think what this represents is it's going to creep up on him and get worse as time goes on. And I am going to represent that with a huge momentum loss, because I think it's going to mess up everything he's trying to do here. Like, as he reacts to the environment, like, so many things are going to shift around and become unreliable that I'm actually going to give him a -3 to his momentum, bringing him all the way down to a 0. I think that's a decent way to represent just how messed up physically is going to be when, like, where the door is in a room might be. Like he can't rely on his perceptions at all right now. He is conscious, and his perceptions are still they're like distorted versions of reality. They still generally represent reality. So like that's part of the big difference between him still having been successful at avoiding drinking the worst of the poison. Like he's a lot better suited to still have agency in this moment for having avoided the worst of it. Just he's subtly off in everything, and his eyes are wide as he recognizes the true threat of the situation. Shadow people on the periphery of what he sees coming around. Because of the result of the drugs, he's almost seeing them more for their true essence. Like they look even cultier than they're supposed to. Like as far as he sees them, they're these full-on just like hooded, looming shadow people with the classic curvy cultists like dagger. They're coming up on him. He probably sees more of them than even exist. In his mind, that he's surrounded in the middle of this bar right now, and he can't quite tell who is a threat and who is not. He just knows that they're coming in, they're going to get him. And it's not all just his vision. In real life, the two members of Anubis are indeed coming up to try and just incapacitate him the rest of the way, get him out of here unnoticed. And so he is definitely in a very precarious position. And so as for how he's going to get out of it, well, that's a question for next time. I can tell you my mind is already swimming with, like, what's going to happen next? What's Emile's next move? I've got some ideas, but we're going to have to wait a week. Both you and I, well, I guess I'm not going to have to wait a full week. I'm going to have to wait till I record the next session, which, well, that's not going to be a week from now. This one's, full disclosure, I'm coming up on the wire of getting this one out there for you. This, as you're hearing my voice right now, this is probably only like hours after I'm recording this exact speech. But anyway, looking forward to moving on to what's next. I hope you are as well. But before then, we've got the prompts. And because my mind is so in the world right now of what we were just doing, this moment of peril with Emile's having a drug slipped in his drink, I've decided this week it's going to be, I want a name for that drug. I want to be able to call it something more specific. So I've rolled up an action and theme to help inspire, like, what do they call this psychedelic poison that's been put in his drink? And I've rolled up reject and hope. So what kind of a name do you get out of the concept reject hope? Or, if you're so inclined, come up with a different drug. Maybe not the one that Emile just got slipped, but just some other drug based on the words reject and hope. Tell me about what it does. starforgedpod@gmail.com. Send me your ideas. I always love to hear about them. And for now, play me out, music.